I was just messing with you.
We including this in the episode too tomorrow. We talking to James Barrett back there, people. All right, let's go. Yeah,
Wait, give me 1 second.
yeah.
Best one is Oreo.
No, it's
So
not.
that's all that
No,
matters, really.
it's wild berry.
No, it's not.
Where Oreo Pop Tart. What's the
Yep.
best Pop Tart, Katie?
S'mores is also a good option. I'd say s'mores is second.
Do you not hear you just say wild berry?
Wild berry.
Thank you.
Wild
Thank you in the back. Wild berry. All right.
Wild berry is the best one.
I don't even think that makes my top three. I'd go cinnamon at 3.
Welcome to the Empire State Sports Show. I am your main host, Stacey Carter II, and I'm joined by Tommy Rooney, Mr. Cinnamon Pop Tart over here, and Teddy Caputo. New
Blueberry
name, new
Pop-Tart.
logo.
Blueberry Pop Tart.
Blueberry Pop Tart. We got a new name, new logo, people, and we got a fantastic episode for you to round off the year. We got to start off with Juan Soto, signed with the Mets, 15 years. $765 million.
Yeah.
That man, if they gave him all his contract right now, he has enough money to give all of us $1 million in this country.
Yeah.
1 to 2 million, which that's not a
Quick
bad
math.
option for you, by the way, because holla at your boy. But man, record-breaking deal. Crazy. We knew that he was gonna sign for big money. We also talked about how the Mets were a major player when it came to Juan Soto, but they actually landed him. Wow. I'm shocked to say the least. So let's just talk about our reaction to this historic deal. Let's start with you, Teddy. How do you feel about that contract for Juan Soto?
Well, first thing I was gonna say is you're right, dude. We pretty much predicted this being a really real possibility, a few weeks ago on the show. And I mean, based on some of the other offers he got, like the Yankees offered him 16 years for $760 million. That's a very lucrative offer. But he's chasing that bag because he got an even more lucrative offer. And the signing bonus was $75 million. So that puts the whole deal at $840 million. And what the Nationals offered him just a couple years ago was 14 years, $440 million.
Oh, I remember that.
Which, I mean, gosh, that's a lot of money. But he turned it down, and people thought he was crazy for turning down that kind of money. But after getting this deal, people are thinking he made the right decision, and it's basically worth around $400 million more. So this is a big deal for the Mets. However, they have to figure out what they're going to do now about Pete Alonso. Are they going to re-sign him? It looks like they have the money to do it, but that's a lot of commitment to basically one player. So they already have Starling Marte signed through 2026. They have Francisco Lindor signed through 2031. And so, maybe adding Alonso back into that mix would be really good for them. But the question is, will they be able to give him the money he wants? Because he may want more money than before. So we'll see. And I think they have more issues to deal with on the other side, which we'll get to in a little bit. But big move for them. I think signing Pete Alonso would really put them over the edge, though.
Let's focus in on Pete Alonso right quick, Tommy. Now they have Juan Soto. Do you think that closes the door for the Mets to bring back Pete Alonso, or should that still be a priority?
That should be their number one focus right now. He is coming off his worst statistical season. Yeah. So that may, allow them to not have to spend as much money as they may have prior, but they have the money to do it, like Ted was talking about. Their payroll last year was still $100 million more than it is currently after signing Juan Soto to that massive deal. So they have $100 million more to play with for this upcoming season. And baseball is baseball. You can spend as much as you're willing to spend, which I feel like that kind of brings me back to what I think the main takeaway from this is. He chose $5 million more over going to a team that's a better team overall. And that kind of confuses me. And like I said on the show when we talked about this prior, he should go back to the Yankees because they're a better team. They have an easier path to get to the World Series. And $5 million is going to be the thing that puts it over the edge for the Mets. I don't understand that. This may be, and I don't know what type of character guy Juan Soto is. This may be the most I'm going for the money instead of winning situation I've ever seen in my life, to be honest. $5 million, 765 versus 760 is that big of a deal that you're going to go to a worse team? That's crazy to me.
They're much lower than the Yankees. I mean, they were just in the NLCS. They lost to the eventual champions, the LA Dodgers. And I think the Mets have a great chance of reaching the World Series next year. So do you think that's
I'm not saying they don't have a great chance, but they don't have a better chance than the Yankees, and they don't have a better chance than the Dodgers either. So you're putting yourself in a harder position to get to that final goal, which everybody says is the most important thing. Is $5 million more important than winning the World Series? Like, that's really what it comes down to for Juan Soto. And like Teddy said, he made obviously the right financial decision by turning down the contract a few years ago to get this bigger deal. And I think another larger storyline that comes out of this is the best free agent in every class now going to get $700 million? Like, we thought that last year with Ohtani was like an aberration because he's like the one of a kind player, transcendent type of player. There's like the best pitcher and the best hitter in baseball. So, okay, he's in a class of his own. No, like he's now second to Juan Soto. And Juan Soto is just not saying he's a regular. He's a great player, but it's not like he's also the best pitcher in MLB. So is every player now going to keep increasing that total and resetting the market? $765 million. Like, that's an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
Insane.
I think it really comes down to like the potential of the players. I mean, Shohei Ohtani, he's like literally the Babe Ruth of this generation. Plus, he brings in a whole new market of an audience, the Japanese audience, because he played in the Japanese league for many years. That is, I think, why they justified it, making that financial decision. But then Juan Soto, he's only 26. He's got many years of ball left in him. And he showed just a few years ago, like in his early 20s, like how good he can be, pretty much being the MVP of the World Series. So again, I think that is a reason why, but I agree. Like, this is a dangerous precedent to set in the sport because basically you're allowing these teams that have a lot of money, like the Yankees, the Mets, the Red Sox, whatever, to be able to spend, and the Dodgers, to be able to spend this money, and then all these lower tier teams just won't be able to keep up. So you're just allowing a lot of power at the top, and these teams at the bottom, they're not going to be able to land a big star. That's why the Padres couldn't keep Juan Soto, because they didn't have the money to throw at Juan Soto.
Yeah, I do agree with you that I think MLB is still top heavy when it comes to free agency. So hopefully that gets fixed. I don't know if you're going to put in some sort of cap, but
I mean, they've been talking about that for however long. Yeah. And at some point, I feel like that's the only way that, like, was Juan Soto going to go to any other team besides the Yankees or the Mets realistically? Like, we talked about the Nationals, we talked about the Red Sox a little bit. Those teams are the teams that have the most money. Like, you're not like the Pittsburgh Pirates will never spend $765 million on one player ever in the history of the world. It will never happen.
It's true.
So I don't, like Teddy was talking about the competitive balance. It's definitely a real thing that you got to keep up with. And last year, the World Series was great between New York and LA. It was fun to watch. Two teams that don't really like each other and two markets that are the biggest markets in the country. It was fun to watch that aspect of it, but you got to have some competitive balance worked in there as well, where the huge names aren't just always going to go to New York or LA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, first of all, good for Juan Soto for taking the money.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, hey.
9 times out of 10, you got to take the money.
Generational wealth.
You got to take, yeah.
But again, $760 million, like, that's still generational wealth, like $5 million less at that point.
But I will say the Mets work is not done yet. Mm-hmm. I agree. Re-sign Pete Alonso, not just because of the stats or the possibility of him putting up stats, but because for morale.
Yeah.
You know, he's been there a long time. Home run king, been in a home run derby, brings in a lot of fanfare. So you want that back on your team, and you want that duo in your batting lineup. So I think they definitely should bring him back, but more so, they should work on that pitcher too. I believe 3 of their starters are still free agents.
So I actually just looked that up today. So 2 of the starters are still free agents, Sean Manaea and Jose Quintana. But Luis Severino, he just signed a 3-year, $67 million deal with the Athletics. So he's no longer available.
See, and they gonna need the pitching. I'm still a firm believer you need an ace in your lineup.
Yep.
And you need, for real, 2-3 solid starters after that. So they need to bring back those 2, Manaea and
Quintana.
They need to bring those 2 back. Yeah. And bring back Pete Alonso. I mean, they're going to shoot over $1 billion in free agency deals anyway. You might as well go for that.
Yeah, and if you're going to spend a lot of money on your batting, you should spend it in the pitching too. I mean, they've had Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer in recent years, and they've let both of those guys go, which is tragic because those guys, especially in this World Series run, could have been very helpful.
Yep.
So I think you really need to maybe focus on getting a big pitcher who's available on the market, or at least can become available. That's something I think they should really focus on.
Real quick to round off the Juan Soto talk. Now that they have him, and I'm pretty sure they're going to make moves, starting with you, Tommy, Can they overthrow the Dodgers next year and go to the World Series?
I mean, can they? Yeah. Will they? I don't think so still. If I had to pick, if that was the NCLS right now, I'd pick the Dodgers.
Mhm.
I think that they were dealing with some injuries too during that series that, like hopefully they'll be healthy going into this year. And I just think, yeah, the Mets got Juan Soto, but I still feel like the Dodgers are all around better team. They beat the Yankees, who I thought were the best team in baseball last year.
Yeah.
And like we were just talking about with the pitching, I think that was the Yankees' problem, and that's why they didn't end up winning the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mets definitely have to learn from that and try to sure that up. And like I talked about, they still have like $100 million to work with. So
Yeah, I agree with you. What you think, Teddy?
Yeah, honestly, there's not much more that I can add. I think adding Juan Soto really helps make that batting lineup for the Mets more well-rounded. If you kind of look at the Yankees and the Mets batting lineup, the Yankees had a lot more power, but in terms of well-roundedness, like they did struggle in the playoffs to get guys on base so that Juan Soto or anybody else could bat them in. Aaron Judge is still struggling to hit a curveball in the playoffs. So I think the Mets can get guys on base, and Juan Soto is the kind of guy that can bring them in. So that's going to help them in these late playoff pushes, I think. So yes, I think they can, but like Tommy said, the Dodgers, they've set themselves up to be World Series contenders, maybe World Series favorites for the few years to come.
All right. Well, that was the top level for a top level deal for a top level player in the MLB free agency. Now let's go to the middle level. Got to talk about the Buffalo Bills. They pretty much got the AFC East sold up. Now they did just lose to my Rams. They just lost in the shootout 45-40. Thank you, Tommy. 45-42. Kind of begs the question. Is the loss to the Rams concerning? Because now there's 3 losses. They still behind the Kansas City Chiefs by record. Is that concerning going forward? Starting with you, Tommy.
I don't think it's concerning. I think that the bigger story is that the Rams had to win this game, and they did. And it was a shootout. I think another concern something that is concerning is that the Bills let up 44 points. You got to take into account that the Rams offense, when healthy, is extremely explosive with, Kyron Williams, Puka, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford when he gets hot, and he's motivated, which I feel like he was in that game. So I don't think the Bills are in any like panic mode whatsoever. Obviously, there was a lot of scrutiny in terms of the timeout, lack thereof, whatever situation you want to call it, clock management at the end of the game with Sean McDermott. But the Bills are still on track to have home field advantage up until the AFC Championship game, which more than likely, if we're going to be honest, will probably be at Arrowhead. And in that game, who knows what's going to happen? We obviously saw the Bills win in the regular season, but we could have said that for like the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, can they take out Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs at home in Arrowhead when it matters most? That remains to be seen. I'm not worried about the Bills right now going forward. However, they do have a tough test this week against Detroit. And I'm very excited for that game. That's really the only game left on their schedule if they have any chance of losing. They have New England twice and the Jets once. So this game will be, if they lose 2 straight, I'm not going to be concerned at that point either, but it'll put them out of contention for getting that number 1 seed. Yeah. And watch out for the Steelers. Still have like a 3% chance via ESPN metrics to possibly get that 1 seed, which would be awesome. But right now, I'm not worried about the Bills. I would like to see how they match up against the Lions. That could be a potential Super Bowl preview. So I'm excited for that game.
Yeah, let's roll with that. Now they just lost a shootout against the Rams, and they're going against another high-powered offense in the Detroit Lions. Teddy, do you have any concerns about the Bills going into that game versus the Lions?
As a matter of fact, I have a little concern. I don't think the Bills should have anything to worry about long term, but I do think that the Rams kind of cracked the code on how to play the Bills because the Rams ran the ball, I believe it was 47 times, and they only threw it 30. And they really controlled the possession of the football in that game. They had the ball for 38 minutes and 30 seconds to the Bills only having it for 21 minutes and 30 seconds. So they kept that high-powered offense of the Bills off the field.
And Lions got 2 good running backs.
Exactly. And those guys don't get tired because they can split up their time very well. It's a 2-headed dragon, as we were talking about before. That to me, like if they can wear down that Bills defense, it's going to really make the Bills a pass first team, having to throw the ball more. And I mean, gosh, Josh Allen is a stud. I mean, 6 touchdowns, 3 on the ground, 3 in the air. As long as he's on your team, like you have really no worry in terms of putting up points, but you also need to get him on the field. So the longer he's off the field, the less chance he has to score. And the games that they've done the best in this year and have had the most chance of winning and even done the best in, they've had a much more balanced attack, running the ball more. They've had the ball longer in those games. So I think it is a concern going into Detroit. Those other games, not so much. But again, if they don't win against Detroit, then I think they do kind of leave that number one seed up for jeopardy. And I think personally, the Bills would really benefit from having the number one seed because of the winter games. We saw against the 49ers how effective the snow was. Again, it's the 49ers. They're without McCaffrey. They're struggling. But still, a team like Kansas City, who's very good, they may not be used to playing in those elements, and it may really help Buffalo going later into the season. However, it is unfortunately looking like Kansas City will have that. So
Yeah.
I think it's good if the Bills have the number one seed, but
Well, and also we saw last year the Dolphins going to Kansas City for that game that was like below freezing. Kansas City can play in the cold too. It might not be the same in the snow.
It was a -10.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Tua had no desire to be on that football field.
Yeah.
So Kansas City could play in the cold for sure, but I definitely think that it helps the Bills to have home field advantage just strictly because of Bills Mafia being there and supporting them. Them chanting "Let's go Buffalo." That gets me turned. I hate the Bills. So I think it's a great home field advantage regardless of the weather elements.
The cold is one thing. The snow is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, true.
You know,
true.
and they're going to get hit with that lake effect from Lake Erie. So we'll see.
There are two things about the Bills. One, I agree with you, Tommy. The Rams, when healthy, is a great team. They just haven't been healthy all year. The perfect storm came in this game for them. I don't think the Bills should be concerned about that loss. But I do think they do carry concerns going into the Lions, who, again, have a high-powered offense. And I'm starting to wonder, do they have problems with shootouts? I mean, this season, they've been pretty much dominant. They hold some opponents to 10 points and under. But it seemed like when the pace is picked up offensively and they're going against a well-balanced team, a well-trained team offensively, they have trouble. One of their losses is against the Baltimore Ravens, who we can agree when their offense is on, is on. And they gave up 35 points. And then that made me click back to the overtime game they had in the playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs, where they had to trade touchdown for touchdown, score for score, and they just couldn't keep up. So I'm wondering, and it goes to your point about time of possession, running the ball. Can the Bills defense hold up when they don't have a dominant performance?
I mean, it's tough. It's very tough for your offense to score 42 points for you to lose the ball game. Like, as an offense, you got to be like, defense, we need one more stop, and we would have won that game. Like you said, and I wouldn't even characterize the Baltimore game as a shootout because that one never really felt close. Like, that game was controlled by the Ravens for the majority of the game, if not all of it. And it was very disappointing because that was a highly anticipated matchup. I think that the Bills have gotten better as the season's gone on since that Baltimore game, because that was pretty early in the season. Obviously, they added Amari Cooper as well. But like Teddy was talking about, you have to be able to run the ball effectively if you want to win against a good team, because that you can play at your pace. And if the ball is constantly in the other team's hands and your defense has to keep making stop after stop, it's a lot to ask, especially playing against really good teams. And like we were talking about at the very beginning, this was a must-win game for the Rams. So now that they have all their guys healthy and they're in that tight division race with Teddy's Cardinals and the Seahawks, they needed to win that game. And I know even you probably didn't expect them to win. But it was a big win for the Rams. And like we were talking about, I think that the Lions would be a loss that, you could possibly foresee coming because of the defensive question marks and the fact that the Lions have an explosive offense that puts up like 40, 50 a game. But the Buffalo Bills already clinched their division. So they could really rest their starters for the rest of the season, and they're still winning their division.
And I want to touch on home field advantage. I think it's overrated in the playoffs. I don't care where you go, you got to win. I mean, and they probably ain't even going to have home field advantage throughout the AFC anyway. So,
well, I think in terms of the Bills, it's a little different because of Bills Mafia, like Tommy was talking about. And maybe my memory serves me wrong, but I don't remember the Bills ever having a home game AFC championship game in the Josh Allen era. If they've had that or they can get that, that helps them increase their chance of going to the Super Bowl. Every time they get in the AFC Championship game, they're playing in Kansas City, which Arrowhead Stadium.
They played the Bengals that one year.
Yeah, I was trying to say,
okay.
I was trying to think. I don't know if that was the divisional round or the AFC Championship game, but Burrow went into Buffalo in the snow and won,
Yeah.
which
Okay,
was
so
incredible.
Yeah.
So
and
my
then
memory.
guess who beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl that year?
Yeah, the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams did.
Which, by the way, I know this is a New York show, but let me ask you about your Rams really quick. How do you feel about their playoff chances after that win against the Bills, who are a streaking team late into the season?
I'm one of those people that want to take it week by week because the Rams would get up for games like that. Then the next week have a complete letdown,
Yeah.
like they did against the Miami Dolphins not too long ago.
Mhm.
So I'm still holding my breath.
Yeah.
I'm still holding my breath. It's still so close.
Yeah, no, that's really true. But I will say, though, the NFC West is still kind of up for grabs. The Rams, I believe, have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks right now, and they still have another game to play against them. The Rams' schedule is relatively easy. So, I mean, with the exception of that Seahawks game. So there's a real chance for them to be able to kind of maybe push their way into that spot and get the division. But even if they don't get the division, they're only one game back from the Commanders, who their schedule's not super difficult either, but the Saints have been doing pretty well as of recently. So that's not a super easy game having to go into the Superdome, especially as the Commanders have struggled a little bit. They did bounce back against the 3-10 Titans. But they also have the Eagles, who are highly motivated to try to get the 1 seed in their division. That's going to be a tough game. The Falcons, who have been struggling too, but they're hungry to try to get the win in their division. Then the Cowboys have not had a great season, but they've seemed to make a little bit of a bounce back. So the road for the Commanders is not as easy as they think, where the Rams have all their pieces back. They're playing good football, you know, both Puka and Cooper and Kyron Williams, who ran the ball really well.
You hear that, James? The Rams are on the Commanders next.
Oh,
You hear that? What you think?
So
yeah.
All right, let's go to the last level, the last topic of this show. We got to talk some NHL for the first time on this show. We are talking about hockey, and we got to focus in on the New York Rangers. They just traded their captain, Jacob Trouba, to the Anaheim Ducks of all teams. I don't know if y'all know about the Ducks, but they've been pretty horrible.
Not good.
They ain't been
Not a good ball club.
And then also, hours after that, they extended their goalie, Igor Shesterkin.
Good pronunciation there.
Yes.
Igor Shesterkin. I'm keeping it in just for human touch. We all make mistakes. But let's just talk about the Rangers. The question I pose is, should they continue to clean house or rebuild and fight for their playoff lives or their championship aspirations? When you trade your captain, that just tells me that you're just mailing it in. Like somebody who's been down for your team, been through the wars. I mean, they had a great team over the last few years, just came up short every time. Like I said, when you trade your captain, they just tell me like you're ready to rebuild, you're ready to start over, try something new. So I was thinking, since they traded away Jacob, they might as well trade away Chris Kreider, who is their best player available right now. Trade him away, get some picks, get some nice prospects back that's in the minor leagues, and keep building from there. But this move also confuses me because, like I said, they just extended their goalie. But then there's talks about him struggling. He allowing near 3 goals a game this year.
Yep.
Which is upward from where he used to. So I don't know. I think they should retool. I don't know. I think they kind of fought because we were talking about last week when they're going against the Devils. They lost badly. I think they lost 5-2. That's their rival right there.
Yep.
And this probably was like the nail in the coffin for this team. So I think they should start to retool, trade away Chris Kreider, get something good back for him, and push, the next couple of years. Just wait it out.
I see what you're saying in terms of trading your captain, and they're 4th right now in the Metropolitan Division, so it's not like they're the worst team in the league. Going into this season, Igor, their goalie, was one of the 2 best goalies in the NHL. So he hasn't been playing great this year, but he's also waiting for that contract to come. So now that he has that, maybe he feels more secure, and you never know how things may change. I think that he's better than how he's playing right now, there for sure. And I think question marks in the locker room can affect how a team plays.
Yeah.
It affects chemistry. It affects, who's going to be next to you in the locker room the next day.
Yep.
And now that they kind of shored up those question marks, at least for the time being, I think you let the roster play out for a little bit longer. When you get close to the trade deadline, maybe you make some moves there, clean house like you were talking about. But I don't think you do that just yet. Like I said, they're not that out of it. They're only 11 points back of being first place in the division right now. That's not that bad. You can make that up.
So
So
points is a lot.
I mean, but it's not insurmountable. Like we're still pretty early in the year.
They still have a wild card spot, right?
Yeah, and so I don't think
this team they go ahead finish it.
I just don't think they need to blow it up yet.
But this team was a championship level team.
Yeah.
Last year and even the year before that,
Mhm.
and you trade your captain away, and we not even in the middle of the season.
We're like
Oh.
about a quarter of the way.
Quarter in.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, Stacey. I think they really want to do something new and try to rebuild because, again, they're not out of it. They're still in it. They're not having as good of a season last year. But again, I think it's just all this drama, all this talk in the locker room about like what is happening with the organization. From an article I read, it sounds like that the management of the Rangers have done similar things before where they kind of talk about the beginning of the season. Oh, we're thinking about moving this player, that player. And they were talking about that with Trouba. And now they finally pulled the trigger, but it's going through his mind this year. Like, am I going to be here the next day? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to stay a Ranger for the whole season? And that probably not only impacts his play, but as the captain, it impacts the rest of the team's play. And they really need help on defense this year because Igor, he has the third most shots against him, which just kind of shows that they're not really helping him defend and get
the opposition is getting through their defenses and getting shots on goal.
Exactly. So, why trade him right now when you kind of have an ability to push? If you were really falling back, okay, maybe. But it kind of is nonsensical in that way. And they were also talking about trading away Chris Kreider as well. So if they're going to trade away Trouba and they're trying to rebuild, not saying they should trade away Chris Kreider, but based on the history, they probably are going to, and they probably should. Not to say that, I mean, he's good and he's, one of their hopes too, but they're talking about trading him. They might as well trade him because they're probably going to trade him. And why wait?
You think they should keep Kreider?
I think for the time being, you got to see how the team plays out. Another thing that's something to consider is that this was a big contract that they were able to completely give all to the Ducks. So the Ducks are paying every cent of that contract now, which means the Rangers have some cap room to play with. They want to bring somebody else in who maybe will help them get back to being a contending team. And like we were just talking about, it's kind of like two opposite direction moves. You're bringing back one of your best players. And from all accounts, he's apparently the heartbeat of the team. So he might not have been the captain, but if he's the guy who brings everyone together, the glue guy, as some people call it in the locker room, then that's important to keep that around, especially if things aren't going so great. And bringing in another superstar with that money that you have now, that could be something that happens instead of going the direction you guys were talking about, blowing it up and rebuilding. I don't think that they're at that point yet. And I don't think they need to be at that point just yet. So I don't know who that would be necessarily, who's out there on the trade market, but if things go bad and they lose all the rest of their games, then yeah, blow it up.
So,
but
I mean, I don't think they're going to make any more moves until we get close to the trade deadline.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
if they want to go for the playoffs, well, they might even still sneak in the playoffs or be a wild card team. But if they're trying to push for that Stanley Cup, they got to have a nice record going into near the trade deadline, so that way they can get one of those star players that's out there in the NHL that's on the fringe that wants to change the scenery.
Yeah, well, it sounds like too, like that they were trying to clear cap space and also make more availability for their young defensemen to grow and maybe just build their contracts out. But that's the thing, like the Rangers, they started off hot. They were like 12-2, but they've lost 7 out of their last 9 games. So I think they were kind of seeing, oh, we were thinking of moving Trouba at the beginning of the year, and now we're slipping, we're falling. There's all these questions in the locker room. The morale is down. So I think they may have traded that to kind of get the drama away, even though it probably hasn't gone fully away. But then they signed the glue guy, Igor, their goalie, and maybe that'll bring some morale back. But I also have to co-sign what Tommy said. It sounds like they may trade away Chris Kreider, but while you're still in contention, like you can't just trade away your whole team, or at least main success stories of your team, like Kreider, who's helping them stay in it. So they should keep him for now.
Any parting shots?
Although I do think we need to give some love. I know it's technically not a New York team. We do need to give some love to the Devils because they're one of the best teams in hockey.
Oh yeah. I'm a Jack Hughes fan. I like seeing Jack Hughes play.
So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep this up. But they're a good ball club.
Well, New York, thank you for the drama. Never stop.
Shador Sanders, you are a giant.
We'll see about that. But that was the end of the Empire State Sports Show. I am main host, Stacey Carter II, joined by Teddy and Tommy. We will see y'all in 2025.
Yes, sir.
See you guys next year.
See you next year.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Happy holidays.